How's everybody doing?
Yeah.
Good, good.
So when you went back and kind of looked back at the game, what was the things that when you took away from it, you said, I really like what I did here, and really feel like this is things I needed to really work on and progress on.
I was really thankful for being out there, of course, and it's everything, in the midst of a game that you could progress in. When it comes to like even footwork, when you're hitting the ball off, um, locating defenders, understand that the windows do close a little bit quicker. Um, it's a lot of things that you could go back in a game and look back and want to redo. Yeah.
The atmosphere inside Cleveland Browns Stadium was electric. After enduring 2 agonizing months of watching Jaden Gabriel play the most uninspiring, lackluster football imaginable, Browns fans were practically begging for anything different. The excitement was palpable, the anticipation was real, and when Shedeur Sanders finally got his shot, you could feel the energy shift throughout the entire stadium. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The son of primetime, the Colorado star, the quarterback who was supposed to go in the first round, was finally getting his chance to show the NFL world what he could do. What happened next can only be described as an absolute disaster. Let me paint you the full picture of just how catastrophically bad Shedeur Sanders' NFL debut actually was, because the numbers alone don't even tell the complete story. After completing his very first pass attempt on a play-action bootleg to Cedric Tillman for a modest 4 yards, a moment that should have been the beginning of something special, everything went completely sideways. By the time the final whistle blew, Shedeur had completed just 25% of his passes, going 4 for 16 for a measly 47 yards. But wait, it gets worse. He threw an interception, got sacked twice, and posted a passer rating of 13.5. Let that sink in for a moment. 13.5. That's not just bad, that's historically terrible. That's the kind of number that makes quarterbacks legends for all the wrong reasons. The Browns had built a 6-point lead in the first half, and it looked like maybe, just maybe, they had something to build on. But Shedeur completely failed to lead the offense to a single point in the entire second half. Not a field goal. Not a touchdown. Nothing. Meanwhile, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens rattled off 13 unanswered points to close out the game, winning 23-16. In just 30 minutes of game time, the Ravens completely dismantled whatever hope Cleveland had built up. The Browns were within striking distance the entire time, making this collapse even more painful to watch, and making Shedeur's performance look exponentially worse because the game was absolutely winnable. Now, you might be thinking the stat sheet is misleading, that maybe the film shows something different, that perhaps Shedeur made some good plays that just don't show up in the box score. Unfortunately, the film actually makes everything look even worse. The eye test confirms what the numbers are screaming at us. Shedeur Sanders played some genuinely terrible football in this game, and I'm going to break down exactly what went wrong by showing you the plays that perfectly encapsulate his disastrous debut. Let's start with literally his 3rd ever play as an NFL quarterback, a moment that set the tone for everything that followed. Cleveland found themselves in a 3rd and 8 situation with the ball at their own 27-yard line. In this scenario, every single yard is absolutely crucial, because even if you don't convert the first down, gaining a few yards on 3rd down puts your punter in a significantly better position to pin the opposing team deep in their own territory on the next drive. The defensive alignment that Baltimore showed before the snap should have actually made Shedeur's job easier. The Ravens lined up with 7 defenders on the line of scrimmage, showing an aggressive blitz package designed to pressure the young quarterback. This alignment should have given Shedeur a quick and easy decision because he had 3 receivers on his left side with only 2 defensive backs covering them. Baltimore had 2 defensive backs up top, Nate Wiggins and rookie Malachi Starks, But Wiggins was on the opposite side of the field, where Cleveland's only receiving options were David Njoku and potentially running back Jerome Ford. Starks was playing free safety, taking away anything deep over the top. Now, there was definitely a possibility that Baltimore would run a stunt, because defensive coordinator Zach Orr loves to show pressure and then drop defenders back into coverage. But in that case, Shedeur would have had more time in the pocket to read the defense and make an informed decision, rather than dealing with unaccounted pressure in his face. Once the ball was snapped, we saw exactly what type of pressure Baltimore was bringing. Instead of rushing all 7 guys who were threatening to blitz, they only brought 5 pass rushers, with both Alohi Gilman and Roquan Smith sprinting back into coverage. This left the actual blitzers in one-on-one matchups with the Browns' offensive line, which still wouldn't last long because Cleveland's offensive line had absolutely no clue what their blocking assignments were pre-snap. They were essentially playing survival mode, rather than actually giving Shedeur a clean pocket to work from. Here's where things get interesting, though. The play that offensive coordinator Tommy Rees called was actually pretty good. From the left side, Cleveland had 2 crossing routes from both the inside receiver and the wide receiver, creating natural levels in the middle of the field. Jerry Jeudy was running an out route in the middle of those crossers to create additional space. And most importantly, David Njoku was running a shallow crosser from the tight end position, and he ended up completely wide open after Roquan Smith overcommitted to his coverage assignment and left Njoku working across the field unaccounted for. With the pressure bearing down on him, Shedeur needed to go through his progressions quickly and find Njoku, because this wasn't just a play that would give the punter better field position. This very well could have been a first down conversion, keeping the drive alive. Instead, even though it appears Shedeur actually sees Njoku open, he opts not to throw the football. With Kyle Hamilton running him down like a freight train, Shedeur chooses to take the sack for absolutely no good reason whatsoever. This type of play is exactly what we saw from Shedeur Sanders during his 2 years at Colorado, the kind of decision-making that made him a serious concern for NFL evaluators, just 3 plays into his NFL career. And he's already showing the exact same problematic tendencies that caused him to fall in the draft. It makes you genuinely question what he's been working on during practice over the last few months since being drafted. And to add insult to injury, Kyle Hamilton did Shedeur's signature watch celebration after the play, basically mocking him on national television. That's not exactly the start you're looking for in your NFL debut. On the very next drive, Shedeur and the Browns found themselves in almost the exact same situation, except this one was even more critical. With the ball at their own 17-yard line instead of the 27, the field position was worse, making the stakes higher. Baltimore lined up very similarly with 7 defenders at the line of scrimmage yet again, showing heavy pressure and forcing Shedeur to make another quick decision. However, Cleveland came out in a different formation this time, using more of a tight alignment that made it easier to attack the sidelines for a quick throw and keep extra blockers in to protect if needed. Once the ball was snapped, we got a very similar defensive scheme from the Ravens. They brought 5 pass rushers again and dropped 2 defenders back into coverage, Roquan Smith once more, and this time, instead of defensive back Alohi Gilman, they dropped back rookie linebacker Trenton Simpson to create more speed in the secondary while still maintaining pass rush pressure. After how the last drive ended with the embarrassing sack, Shedeur knew he needed to get the ball out quickly this time. The problem is, he did it completely wrong. He had David Njoku running another route short of the sticks, a safe option that would have at least gained some yards and helped the field position battle. Instead, Shedeur took an extra second or two, stared down Jerry Jeudy running an out route on the outside, hoping to find him past the first down marker. But that option took way too long to develop. Shedeur got absolutely blown up in the backfield, but it wasn't ruled a sack. He probably would have preferred that outcome. He managed to get the ball out right as he was getting demolished by a Ravens defender. With no receiver within several yards of where the ball landed, He threw an uncontested interception directly to Nate Wiggins, giving Baltimore incredible field position after a completely preventable turnover that should never have happened if Shedeur had simply gone through his progressions and found Njoku instead of locking onto Jerry Jeudy and praying he could make a miraculous play. The next play I want to show you is one that doesn't show up as anything negative in the stat sheet, but it absolutely should have, and you need to see it to understand just how lucky Shedeur got. This play happened on the very next drive after the Nate Wiggins interception, and Shedeur was in prime position to immediately redeem himself. Cleveland called a play-action bootleg out of a single back formation, and as Shedeur rolled out to his right, Kyle Hamilton was pursuing him aggressively because he read the play almost immediately. But once Hamilton realized what was happening, he hesitated between covering David Njoku, who was trailing behind and appeared to be the primary target of the play design. Shedeur saw Hamilton's hesitation, recognized that throwing to Njoku could result in another turnover, and then still decided to throw the ball to Njoku anyway. Of course, Hamilton was right there in perfect position, and he dropped what should have been an easy interception. Shedeur was incredibly fortunate that Hamilton couldn't hold on to the ball, because this would have been back-to-back interceptions on back-to-back plays, giving Baltimore elite field position on consecutive drives. It was just more terrible decision-making from Shedeur, the kind of mistakes that simply cannot happen at the NFL level. The final play I want to highlight is arguably the worst one Shedeur had all day, and it perfectly represents everything we saw from him during his Colorado days. On yet another third and medium situation, Shedeur had the opportunity to finally convert a crucial third down and keep a drive alive against a Ravens blitz that everyone in the stadium knew was coming. Baltimore sent 5 pass rushers on this play with Kyle Van Noy sitting back as a spy, leaving 5 defenders deep to cover the entire field. Surprisingly, that ended up being more than enough, and Cleveland's receivers essentially got locked down across the board. With pressure collapsing the pocket, Shedeur should have simply thrown the ball away and lived to fight another day. Instead of making the smart play, he tried to channel his inner Superman and make something happen like he did countless times in college. But the inexperienced quarterback will always default to their instincts, and that's exactly what Shedeur did here. Rather than throwing the ball away or taking a chance on a one-on-one matchup downfield, he decided to hold on to the football, spinning away from a rushing Draymond Jones before eventually being brought down by Keon Martin for a loss of almost 20 yards. That is absolutely absurd and should never, ever happen in an NFL game. Shedeur Sanders continuously made boneheaded plays throughout this game, and it resulted in one of the worst halves of football we've seen from any quarterback this entire season. The performance was so bad that it has people genuinely questioning whether he belongs on an NFL roster at all. Now, there have been people online giving Shedeur the benefit of the doubt, arguing that he underperformed in this game because he didn't get any practice repetitions with the first-team offense leading up to it. And while yes, getting first-team reps is definitely important for chemistry and timing, that excuse doesn't really hold water when you examine it closely. It's not like Shedeur was named the starter before this game and then denied those crucial practice reps. He came into the season as the backup quarterback. Every single backup quarterback in the entire league is in the exact same position that Shedeur was in, and none of them get first-team repetitions. Because why would they? Jaden Gabriel was the expected starter, and he did start the game. So naturally, he was going to be the one getting all those first-team reps during the week. That's just how the NFL works. The situation gets even more interesting because Jaden Gabriel hasn't been cleared from concussion protocol for next week, which means Shedeur Sanders is going to get one more chance, this time against the Las Vegas Raiders. Cleveland is now preparing Shedeur for his first ever NFL start next Sunday, and honestly, the stakes could not possibly be higher. This is either going to be Shedeur's redemption story, where he proves all the doubters wrong and shows why he should have been selected in the first round, or this is going to be the beginning of the end for his career before it even really gets started. There's absolutely no middle ground here, no gray area where he can play mediocre and keep his job prospects alive. What makes this situation even more fascinating is the absolute circus that has surrounded Shedeur since the day he was drafted, and truthfully, even before that moment. When you put everything into perspective, it's genuinely crazy how we got here. Shedeur was projected by numerous draft analysts to potentially go as high as the number 2 overall pick in the 2025 draft. Teams like the New York Giants at pick 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers at pick 21, and the New Orleans Saints all had opportunities to select him with their draft picks. Instead, Shedeur fell all the way to the 5th round, where the Cleveland Browns traded up to take him with the 144th overall pick, making him the 6th quarterback selected in the draft. To put that into proper financial perspective, if Sanders had gone 21st overall to the Steelers, like many experts expected, he would have made approximately $13.3 million more than what he's making now as a 5th-round pick. That's generational wealth that he missed out on because 31 teams passed on him multiple times. And now he's got to prove that every single one of them made a massive mistake by overlooking him. According to NFL insider Albert Breer, Sanders handled the entire pre-draft process like he was a guaranteed top 5 lock, declining to meet with several teams that expressed interest in him, and reportedly telling one team during a combine interview that maybe he wasn't a fit for their organization when they pressed him on concerns about his game. ESPN analyst Damian Woody said the NFL basically sent Sanders a clear message, telling him through the draft results that he's not the elite quarterback prospect he believed himself to be. And when you combine his on-field concerns with all the celebrity attention and media circus that follows him everywhere because of his famous father, teams simply didn't want to deal with having a celebrity backup quarterback on their roster. After Sunday's disastrous performance, you honestly can't blame NFL teams for being extremely hesitant about drafting him. But here's where things get really interesting, and this is what's going to make Sunday's game against the Raiders must-watch television for every football fan. Head coach Kevin Stefanski confirmed after the Baltimore game that Sunday was literally the first time Shedeur Sanders took any repetitions with the first-team offense. Think about that for just a second and let it sink in. Right guard Wyatt Teller told reporters after the game that he had only heard Shedeur's cadence maybe 2 or 3 times before having to protect him against one of the most aggressive defenses in the NFL. The offensive line barely knew what Shedeur sounded like when calling plays at the line of scrimmage. They didn't know his snap count, his cadence variations, his audible calls. They hadn't practiced with him in any meaningful capacity whatsoever. Now, I understand that the Baltimore Ravens don't have the most elite defense in the NFL this season, but even so, if you don't get meaningful repetitions together as a unit and someone is taking snaps with the first team for the very first time in a live game situation, obviously that quarterback is going to be placed at a severe disadvantage. It's setting him up to fail from the very beginning. With Jaden Gabriel still stuck in concussion protocol heading into this week, Shedeur is going to get something he didn't have before the Baltimore game, a full week of practice with the starting offense. He's going to take every single first-team repetition. The offensive line is going to learn his cadence and snap count. The receivers are going to build actual chemistry and timing with him on their routes. Tommy Rees can game plan specifically around Shedeur's strengths as a quarterback instead of planning around Jaden Gabriel's completely different skill set. This is what Shedeur should have had all along before being thrown into an NFL game. But the Browns' quarterback situation has been such an absolute mess this entire season that they've basically been operating in pure survival mode since week 1. The human element of this story makes it even more compelling. Shedeur's father, Deion Sanders, was reportedly in tears when he found out his son was going into the game against Baltimore. Coach Prime was running a coaching clinic on Sunday when his son Deion Jr. called him screaming with excitement to let him know that Shedeur was entering the game. Deion said he started crying immediately, telling his son to leave him alone because he was so emotional about the moment. This is how much this opportunity meant to the entire Sanders family. After all the speculation, all the drama, all the criticism about whether Deion pushed Shedeur too hard or whether Shedeur was only successful at Colorado because of his famous last name and the talent his father recruited around him, this was the moment they had all been waiting for. And it went as poorly as it possibly could have gone. But here's where the story gets really compelling from a historical perspective. History is actually filled with examples of great quarterbacks having absolutely terrible debuts and going on to have Hall of Fame careers. Terry Bradshaw went first overall in 1970 and posted a horrific 30.4 passer rating as a rookie with 24 interceptions. He went on to win 4 Super Bowls and became a Hall of Fame quarterback. Troy Aikman went 0-11 in his starts as a rookie in 1989 with a 55.7 passer rating, completing just 52.9% of his passes with 9 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. He won 3 Super Bowls and made the Hall of Fame. Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions as a rookie and went 3-13 with the Indianapolis Colts. He's arguably the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. Alex Smith went 1-11 with 0 touchdowns and 11 interceptions in his first 7 starts, posting a dreadful 40.8 passer rating, and he went on to have a really solid NFL career, making multiple Pro Bowls. The point is abundantly clear. One bad game doesn't define an entire career trajectory. But what does matter significantly is what happens next, how a quarterback responds to adversity. And for Shedeur Sanders, what happens next is a trip to Las Vegas to face a Raiders team that's just as desperate as the Browns are for any kind of positive momentum. The Raiders are 2-7 on the season, meaning they're one of the absolute worst teams in the NFL right now, right alongside Cleveland in the basement of the league standings. Their defense ranks 14th against opposing quarterbacks in fantasy points allowed, which is roughly league average, nothing spectacular, but not terrible either. But don't let that middle-of-the-pack ranking fool you into thinking this will be easy. The Raiders' defense can absolutely get after the quarterback and make life miserable for anyone operating behind a shaky offensive line. Max Crosby has 5 sacks this season and leads the Raiders with 14 quarterback pressures. He's tied for second in the entire NFL with 10 tackles for loss, tied with none other than Myles Garrett himself. Crosby is legitimately one of the best defensive players in the entire league, regardless of position. Since 2019, his 324 total pressures are 40 more than the next closest player, Nick Bosa. This is a guy who literally lives in the opponent's backfield, terrorizing quarterbacks for a living. And Shedeur's biggest weakness coming out of Colorado was his complete inability to handle pressure effectively. Remember, Shedeur led the entire nation in sacks taken last season while playing at Colorado. His pocket presence has always been questioned by scouts and analysts. He holds onto the ball too long trying to extend plays. He doesn't throw it away when he should, taking unnecessary sacks instead. And now he's going to be facing a pass rusher who's built his entire career on absolutely terrorizing quarterbacks who can't handle pressure. If the Browns' offensive line doesn't give Shedeur adequate time to operate, and let's be completely real here, they haven't given anyone time all season long, this game could get ugly in a hurry. We could be looking at another disaster performance that further damages Shedeur's confidence and standing with the organization. But there's another fascinating layer to this story that makes it even more interesting from a narrative perspective. Kenny Pickett was traded from the Browns to the Raiders before the season started, and he's now sitting on the Vegas sideline watching all of this unfold in real time. Pickett was in the Browns' quarterback room during training camp and the preseason. He competed directly with Shedeur for backup repetitions. He knows the playbook inside and out. He knows Tommy Rees's entire offensive system. And now he's going to be watching from across the field as Shedeur gets the opportunity that arguably should have been given to multiple quarterbacks before him, including potentially Pickett himself. There's got to be a part of Kenny Pickett that's thinking he could have been the guy in Cleveland getting this chance. And now he's watching a 5th-round pick get an opportunity to start while he's stuck as a backup in Las Vegas, which is a very underrated storyline to all of this that most people aren't talking about. The irony and the drama of this situation are absolutely perfect for maximum entertainment value. Here's the thing that makes this game absolutely critical for Shedeur's future in the NFL. If he plays well and leads the Browns to a victory, if he shows significant improvement from what we witnessed in Baltimore, then he might actually have a legitimate chance to keep this starting job even when Jaden Gabriel gets cleared from concussion protocol. Kevin Stefanski has publicly stated that Gabriel will be the starter when he's healthy, but Stefanski also knows that Gabriel has been absolutely terrible this year. Gabriel has thrown 7 touchdowns to 6 interceptions with an average of just 165 passing yards per game. The Browns have scored more than 20 points just once in Gabriel's 6 starts this season. The offense has been completely anemic. If Shedeur comes out against the Raiders and throws for 200-plus yards, tosses 2 touchdowns, and actually leads the Browns to a victory, how do you not at least seriously consider keeping him as the starter moving forward? Kevin Stefanski is legitimately coaching for his job at this point in the season. The Browns are a complete disaster from top to bottom. If Shedeur gives him any reason to believe, any spark of hope that things could be different, Stefanski might just decide to roll with the hot hand and see where it takes them. But if Shedeur plays poorly again, if he continues to struggle with pressure, if he can't lead the offense to score any points in the second half again, then we might genuinely be looking at his last start for a considerable period of time. The Browns could bring Gabriel back once he's cleared and never look back at Shedeur again. Sanders could be relegated to clipboard duty for the rest of the season, watching from the sideline as his opportunity slips away. And in the worst-case scenario, this could legitimately be the beginning of the end for him in Cleveland and potentially in the NFL altogether. The Browns have 2 first-round picks in the 2026 draft, and the quarterback class is supposed to be significantly stronger than this year's class was. If Shedeur doesn't show the organization something real, and I mean really show them something special that makes them believe in his future, they could very easily be drafting his replacement in just a few months. This is genuinely a make-or-break moment for Shedeur Sanders' entire NFL career, and it's all happening in just his second game ever. He's 23 years old, and he's already facing a moment that could define the entire rest of his professional life and career trajectory. The pressure is absolutely immense and overwhelming. The expectations are somehow both sky-high and rock-bottom at the exact same time, which is a bizarre position to be in. And he's doing it all with the entire football world watching, waiting to see if the son of primetime can live up to even a tiny fraction of his father's incredible legacy. The spotlight has never been brighter or more unforgiving. After the Baltimore game, Shedeur took full responsibility for the performance, telling reporters he didn't think he played well at all. Myles Garrett defended him publicly, saying Shedeur wanted to pin the blame on himself and his performance, but the team wasn't going to allow him to shoulder all that burden alone. The locker room believes in him. His teammates clearly have his back and want to see him succeed. Now he just needs to go out on the field and prove that their belief is actually warranted and justified.